One little thing has bothered me since I began writing and recording my Artorias of the Abyss lore. In the exploration of that one idea, I discovered many new assets. These itchings would not leave the back of my mind, and after much thought, I have developed a new theory as to the existence of humanity. This will be fractionally in opposition to some of the things that I've said in the past, but more so, it's an addendum for clarification and revision purposes. Humanity. A long time ago I discovered, in congruence with others, that the humanity items, both regular and twin, resemble that of humanoid figures. The description of these items includes the lines, "This black sprite is called humanity, but little is known about its true nature. If the soul is the source of all life, then what distinguishes the humanity we hold within ourselves?" The soul is the source of all life. Previously, I reduced this description down to irrelevance to the Dark Wraiths, and more importantly, to the Dark Lord seeking an embodiment in a human. Now, while this still remains true, I had not previously realized that I was diminishing the definition and existence of humanity. The DLC revealed something quite powerful, that of the new humanity mobs. They are very similar to the sprites in appearance. You could even say that they are exactly the same except larger. The huge difference, however, is that they now have eyes, a pair each, in the same head location that human beings have. You probably already know where I'm going with this, but I want to give out more justification before I actually say it. Let's not forget that the entire plan for the Dark Lord revolves around causing the undead curse. This will force the affected humans to go hollow unless they collect souls. Doing so retains their sanity and gives them greater power. The sanity I consider inarguable, as the game says as much several times. I'll now read again the description for Manus' soul. This extraordinary soul is a vicious, lukewarm lump of gentle humanity. Ancient Manus was clearly once human, but he became the father of the Abyss after his humanity went wild, eternally seeking his precious broken pendant. It's quite clearly stated that Manus is human. He only became a monster upon his pendant being removed from his possession. That is, in fact, all Manus cares about in his storyline, retrieving that pendant. Dusk says it herself that his feelings of nostalgia and hope basically disqualify him from being a true monster. Elsewhere in the game, there is Gough and his speech about the player's ancestor and Gwyn's motivations. Gwyn trembled at the dark and lived in dire fear of humans. Dire fear. Previously, I always assumed this to be only because humans were the group that went undead and were being manipulated by the darkness. Again, this is still true, but not the full story. Gough tells us that our progenitor found the Dark Soul, and that progenitor is likely Manus, the father of the Abyss. He is not the creator, not the reason it exists, but is the strongest being, that who is the beginning of the Abyss's expansion. If you'll recall, Havel, one of Gwyn's most trusted warriors, was locked away in a tower. This imprisonment was done because Havel went hollow. What if Gwyn had always been taking a gamble on Havel, knowing that someday, no matter what, he would have to be dealt with? And what if he gave Havel life in prison instead of execution, due only to his excellent service record? A bit of Gwyn's conscience showing through. That's enough recollection into the present. Let's step back into the past for some further evidence from the DLC. There was one peculiar trend mentioned by two NPCs, Gough and Ciaran. Upon being attacked, they both make mention of your being human. Specifically, Ciaran says, you humans, always taking what you please. Then I shall do the same. Now, aside from killing you, I don't know what she means as far as doing the same, but that's besides the point. She lets us know that she is not human, and that we, as humans, have a tendency to be lawless, or, more accurately, operate outside of the societal boundaries Ciaran understands and abides by. The dialogue Gough has is even better. Ah, so this is true human nature. Artorias is in your debt, but thou leavest me little choice. May you perish for the good of all. Earlier, I thought that his last line, that of killing us off for the good of all, was only in reference to our personal self being violent enough to take what we please from Gough's hide, despite his earlier assistance. However, Gough also says upon our attack that we are exhibiting true human nature. I also need to bring up dialogue from Artorias. If you haven't heard this yet, let me state that this dialogue is assumed unofficial. It is evidently scalped from unused game files, but take it with that in mind or ignore this next bit entirely. There is no way of knowing at what point Artorias was supposed to speak these words, and it's not even known precisely what he says. His voice is distorted, sounding very much like King Alan's in Demon's Souls, I might add. That's an entirely different theory, but very quickly let me say that it's interesting evidence for my Dark Souls relation to Demon's Souls theory. If they sound the same, perhaps Alan's mutation was also directly because of the Abyss. Let's move on to what Artorias says.
Wherever thou art, stay away. Soon I will be consumed by them, by the dark. Thou art strong, human. Surely thine kind are more than pure dark. I beg of thee, the spread of the abyss, it must be stopped. Ah, Sif, there you are. All of you. Forgive me, for I have availed you nothing.
For reasons of clarity, because as I mentioned, his voice is distorted, I'm now going to also read Artorias' lines. Whoever thou art, stay away, soon I will be consumed, by them, by the dark. You are strong, human. Truly, mankind are more than pure dark. I beg of thee, the spread of the abyss must be stopped. Ah, Sif, there you are. All of you, forgive me, for I have availed nothing. He stops himself from saying with definition what he is being consumed by, and changed it to the dark. Does he not want to tell us that it's Manus, or the Dark Lord behind the curtain? Does he not want to speak that it is humanity consuming him, the dark, raw form that exists in the abyss? Skipping the middle sentence for a moment, it sounds as if Artorias recognizes that you have either rescued Sif, that you have slain her, or that she was supposed to be nearby Artorias at some point originally. Hard to say, but Artorias then asks for forgiveness. He is perhaps asking for forgiveness because his decisions are ultimately what led Sif to being involved in the struggle between light and dark. He could be asking for forgiveness at his last sane moment, knowing he let down those that cared about him, who were depending on him, such as Ciaran and Sif. His last line seems to suggest this, because he admits that he availed nothing. This means he was of no use or advantage, and, as we know, his entire existence has become his battle against the Abyss. Now, hold on, what do I mean by Artorias availing nothing for Sif? Artorias led Sif into the Abyss. I believe that the Abyss is what caused Sif to become her monstrous size. After Artorias' death, Sif seems to take it upon herself to guard the false grave, in deterrent of Abyss seekers finding the true way into the darkness. We know that Artorias wants the Abyss to be stopped in this unofficial dialogue, from the line of him begging us to stop it. We don't know at what point Artorias would say this to the player. I've actually read a theory that he may have been originally supposed to be fought twice, which would give a place for all his lines. Just to digress for a moment, as a participant in the game, it would have been ridiculously awesome to fight Artorias twice, the second time being a more transformed, more difficult version. Now, back to the middle line, which at this point I want to repeat. Truly, mankind are more than pure dark. This brings us back to our purpose, that of humanity. As to what Artorias could mean by pure dark, I surmise the following. Pure dark would be the vileness of the Abyss, its creatures, and the ability to control. The pure dark would be what spawns humanity, what alters the Ulysselian residents and the Four Kings, and what ruins entire cities such as New Londo. There should also be inclusion of Manus, the primeval human that is as twisted a being as they get. But Artorias states that we are more than pure dark. I'm obviously heading in a certain direction, but I acknowledge that Artorias simply could have meant that we, our current player, is better than pure dark. He expects all humans to be nothing but evil, and the player comes along to slay Manus and stop the Abyss. Even if that is the case, my evidence in bringing his dialogue into play remains valid. By chance our character is better than the Dark, but what Artorias may be unaware of is that we are the Dark Lord in the making. Killing Manus is just another step in that direction. He expected us, as a human, to be a horrible creature anyway. I have concluded, based on all this evidence and my own thought process, that humans are not creatures that are manipulated by the darkness, nor that turn undead after living normal lives. I mean, those are all still technically true to an extent, but in the world of Dark Souls they are not created by the natural method we know of in real life. No, humans are strictly creatures of the Abyss. They spawn there, soulless devils that are a violent mix of confused emotions. They mature and grow larger, eventually becoming truly humanoid. Perhaps they start off not undead, attempting to live as if they were an animal the same as everything else around them, or maybe not. Humans may be undead from the start, the worst of things to come from the Abyss. Either way, they are simply a lump of a black sprite matured into a humanoid form. This is why they turn undead and can be consumed by one another. This is why their bones are possible fuel for the bonfires, and why the majority, the players of the game, cannot actually die. Humans aren't life forms in the first place. They are things of a different existence plane. This is why Gough and Ciaran are both dismissive about our nature when commencing violence. This is why Artorias states that we are more than pure dark. This is why Gwyn fears humanity so powerfully that he is willing to sacrifice even himself in the hopes to keep the flames going. Humans do not collect humanity to grow stronger. They absorb one another. This process is the forming of the Dark Lord, and it's even hinted at with the new spell, Dark Fog. The last two lines of this spell read, "Although Dark Fog is, in theory, relatively close to humanity, it also happens to be a terrible poison for humans, perhaps to reflect man's cruelty against his own." Humans are made to destroy one another in the process of absorption. They are unavoidably cruel to each other because it is in their only nature to kill and be killed. The process of invasions is more than a game mechanic, it is a display of humanity's only trait. Humanity is used as a covert method to rebuild the dark soul inside one particular human, whichever turns out to be the strongest. A human that is only an abyss monster in the first place. The humanity mobs even look like humans that are not fully formed, and they have endured one another to become stronger. Those small collections of humanity mobs we discover are the pupa stages of our own existence. This would also explain why the four kings and Artorias are not undead, seeking humanity, because they are not humans. Manus found the original Dark Soul and allowed the Abyss to spread. Nay, he was given the original Dark Soul by the darkness, by the Abyss. He is only human, the first human, because he was created as such, spawned as such, in the Abyss. To be fair to the introductory movie, we are specifically shown that the pygmy is already a humanoid creature as he finds the Dark Soul. So it's far more likely that while the darkness has always existed, the Dark Soul transformed Manus into his current state. This may have been specifically so that he could live in the Abyss and begin the process of culturing humanity. This would also explain why Gwyn never directly feared Manus, and why Manus never directly went on an assault against Anor Londo. Manus only enters the story because he desires his pendant. He isn't designed to take down the Lords. Manus' job is to spawn humanity. The Abyss spread allowed for more and more humans to form, and therefore he is Primeval Man and the Father of the Abyss in one. He is not to be the Dark Lord, however, as he is the tool to allow the abundance of humanity that now exists. He is the progenitor of humanity, the pygmy. 2 out of the 4 knights speak of human nature being evil because they have seen it before. It could have been countless times that they witnessed humans serving Gwyn only to eventually change. Havel is the greatest example, or it could be in other untold scenarios in which humans had to be destroyed. For all we know, humans may have always been known to be vile. Perhaps Manus was the only one of his kind, a human, and his obtaining the Dark Soul put Gwyn and his knights on alert. The pygmy was a weak, scrawny figure, but he always had vile intentions. Think like Gollum from The Lord of the Rings. Either way, more humans came into existence, and this was terrifying because they should not exist, which meant Manus' power had increased, and the beginning of the darkness returned had begun. Then I had another realization, upon reading the description of any consumable soul item in the game. Souls are the source of all life, and whether undead or even hollow, one continues to seek them. At first blush, this makes absolute sense. We know that those who are hallowed seek souls as a way to maintain their sanity. We also know that the gods of Anor Londo took extremely powerful souls to become the lords that they are now. But what about the undead? If not hollow, why would undead seek souls? There's something to be said about collecting more souls before going hollow to stave off the threat of insanity, but I think there's something else to it. What's throwing me for a loop here is that we, the players, humans, collect humanity to reverse hollowing and avoid acting as insane monsters. The pygmy, Manus, originally found the Dark Soul at the same time Gwyn and the others obtained their Lord Souls. It was a soul he found, not humanity. In fact, bosses give you both souls and humanity. Killing enemies can reward you randomly with humanity as well, and yet we primarily kill them for souls. Think of humanity as more like a plague, a turning of souls into humanity, an infection into the system that is used by the lords. The trick is that the undead curse forces all living humans to continue and strive for souls, to kill one another and collect them in order to avoid going hollow. The Dark Lord asserted the plague of humanity into the system, tiny sprites that can become humans through consumption. It's the perfect soul-logical agent. It also gives credit to the assertion that humans are evil. Humans are nothing more than sprites that have absorbed enough of each other to take form. They have to kill and kill and kill some more for souls and humanity. It's the core of their existence. Or, as Gough and Ciaran like to say, their nature. Souls are the source of all life, and humanity is the beginning of the end. Or, better stated, humanity is the return to the darkness, which would be seen as the end by all those enjoying life in Lordran. I feel the need to break that down one more time, so I apologize if you find this unnecessary. Souls exist to make all living beings stronger, from humans to lords. The undead curse is begun by the Abyss, which puts humans into an undead state. This curse being proven by the dark sign. They then have to begin killing one another and everyone else to collect souls for a new reason of avoiding going hollow. This only affects humans, however, those creatures that are from the Abyss in the first place. While collecting souls, they absorb humanity, an effort that reverses the hollow state entirely. Souls cannot do such, only humanity can. At the same time, this humanity collects inside them, a churning towards the eventuality of the Dark Lord formed. So, what does this mean as for the events of the DLC? My new understanding of humanity has caused me to alter my perception of Artorias. I admit it. I'm still fully unconvinced of his honor due to Alvina, but I'm going to lay out a different storyline. Knowing that humans, are such horrible creatures that their very existence means the end of life as they, the Lords, know it, Artorias is sent to deal with the Abyss in New Londo. This is said with the rulers of Anor Londo knowing what humanity is, by the way. Gwyn, his family, and all those most trusted by him. Artorias battles the Dark Wraiths and does his best to subdue the Four Kings, but it proves impossible. This may happen because he is infected, so to speak, or he may just be unable to win the fight. The solution is to flood the city, which Gwyn agrees to. He's already killed the dragons and made a pact with Ciaran, so what's one more atrocity? There's also a good possibility that Artorias' job was to stave off the Dark Wraiths and the Four Kings, holding them at bay while the giant doors were completed that allowed the flooding of New Londo to happen. The people of Ulasil brought the Abyss onto themselves in an effort to take down Gwyn and rule the world. This is in line with what Izalith has already attempted. This is in line with what Nito and Seath were attempting as well. It is learned that Manus is at the heart of this new problem, the father of humanity. Artorias is sent again, and Sif is taken for extra measure, in the hopes that this new threat can truly be abolished. We know Artorias goes into the abyss and flees because Sif is rescued there. Alvina, a friend of the pair, has been watching and waiting. Perhaps Alvina is aware of some change occurring in Artorias, something an advanced cat can sense, or perhaps she is merely worried about what might happen in the stronger version of the abyss. Whatever the case, she finds the player and leads them to Sif's aid. Meanwhile, Artorias, the same as the four kings before him, succumbs to the power of the abyss, converting to a more monstrous state. With the abyss, the Dark Lord, being the cause of the undead curse, it would make sense that the one who traverses the abyss would likely also be afflicted by this curse. The four kings were not human, and could not turn undead otherwise. There would have to be a way for those who are not human to mutate, and all those that have changed had direct contact with the abyss itself. That would explain Sif, Artorias, the four kings, and the Dark Wraiths. This would also give credence to why Artorias ran from the abyss in the first place, leaving Sif behind. Artorias did not want to become something like the four kings and kill his pooch companion, so he made the only possible choice. Leaving his shield and sword behind, the former as a barrier, Artorias sped away from the abyss. He only made it out into Ulasil before converting, and that could be when the Abyss Greatsword is created. The four kings have weapons as well, very large swords that are as ethereal as they are physical. Artorias finds himself with a new weapon as well, except he does not find himself at all, because he has become another Abyssine monster. The reason for his assaulting the player not only remains the same, but is amplified. I stated in the last lore video that Artorias senses the darkness in the player, and this would obviously still remain true. There's not just humanity swarming inside our player character, but a mess that is quickly becoming the Dark Lord. In this version of the events, protecting Artorias' honor would actually mean something. He truly was a man who was hoping to perform justice by those he served. He lost his way not by choice, but because he attempted to do the impossible. Also, I came across a line from Elizabeth that never mingled with my mind until recently, while composing this video. She mentions that Artorias has nary a murmur of dark within him. I consider that astounding evidence for this new series of events of Artorias' past. I fully believe Elizabeth. I believe she is in the game as a state of solid proof. Therefore, Artorias was never working for the dark at all. He only fell to it while hoping to kill Manus and cease the spread of the abyss in Ulasil. It could even be that only Gwyn, the person holding the first flame Lord Soul itself, should have gone to challenge Manus, but instead he chose to sacrifice himself to fuel the flame. It was a desperate attempt in the wrong direction. What Gough thanks you for then becomes true, that you preserve the thoughts of those who knew Artorias as a great man. Your assistance to Ciaran, who wanted her dear friend to be free, was righteous. The legend of Artorias, the man who walked the abyss, could be passed on because no one except 4 people are aware of your interference. Ciaran has become an enigma, likely never to make an appearance again. Elizabeth has sworn herself to silence. If you believe Chester to be a Dark Wraith, as I do, then it would make sense for him to tell others that Artorias stopped the abyss. He would not want the player's existence to draw more attention, now that it has become the best hope for the Darkness revival. If you do not believe Chester to be a Dark Wraith, it still makes sense. He found it dangerous to go after Artorias, likely more than he could handle. Better to spread the rumor that Artorias was successful then. Actually, what's probably most likely is that it is canon for Chester to be killed by the player. He's an invading jerk and deserves to die. Anyway, what about Gough? Gough would want his friend's honor to be intact as well, but there is an extra component. You have freed him, the residents of Ulasil having been the ones who imprisoned him. A human freed him. A human, that which is the worst of all existences. Gough would not want it spread that a human killed Artorias and was strong enough to succeed where he had failed. More important, he has potent interest in Artorias' honor being preserved. Besides, it's likely that Gough lived out his days at the tower alone, carving his memories away.